Okay, welcome to lesson 17. We're going to build a super simple calculator that I'm hoping you will improve later. It's a fun project, I think. So let's take a look at it. So this is really super basic right now. We have two inputs here, first number, second number, and we have a button called add. So let's just put in a couple numbers, 2 and 4, add, and there's our result, 6. Okay, and you're probably thinking, wow, I can't really do much with that calculator, but you're going to improve it on your own time. You're going to build a really cool looking calculator. So let's learn how to build this. The first thing to do is copy down this style here, this CSS. And this is a little bit of HTML down here. So pause this and copy that down, and then we'll start doing some JavaScript. Okay, so you got that copied down. Excuse me. Let me just explain a little bit of the HTML. We have div, which is just a section of our page. Oh, by the way, if you need to do a little bit of studying of HTML, which I highly recommend, you need to understand this, go to W3 Schools. I'll put the address above me in a second. Okay, so we have a div. Inside the div, we have two text input boxes. We gave them each an ID. We gave them each a placeholder. A placeholder is, let me reload this. See, this is the placeholder, first number, second number. You can put any text you want in there. And then we have a button with an ID add button and some text add. And then we have an output and the area where we're going to put the result of our calculation. Okay, and down here we've got a script which we are going to write from scratch. So let me dump that. Okay, let's do some JavaScript. So the first thing we want to do in our script is grab these HTML items, number one, well, num1 and num2. So let's see, let n1 equal document, get element by ID, and that is in quotes num1. That's the first one. And is that all I want to do there? I think so. And we want to do this twice because we need n2 as well. Let's just change that to n2 and change this to num2. Okay, and then what do I want? I want an event listener. Okay, so I want to grab this button here. So I'm going to say let btn equal document. Basically the same thing, get element by ID. What is the ID of the button? It is add button. Add button. And then I want to add an event listener to that so that we can have our button do something. So btn dot add event listener. And what do we do with an event listener? We tell it, what are we looking for? We're looking for a mouse click. So we're looking for a click event. So click, we get a click event. We want to call a function called add. function. Okay. Now we don't have a add function, so we need to write it. So function add function, which is down here. Okay, what are we going to do? We need to grab the values that we put in these text boxes. So we're going to put a number in here, we're going to put a number in there, and we need to grab them. And we call those text fields N1 and N2. So what I want to do is I want to say we're going to add them, and then we're going to get a result. So I'm going to say let result equal N1 value plus N2 value. And notice value means whatever's in that text box. Take the value that the user entered into that text box, okay, and add those two values. So in other words, the user is going to put a number in here and a number in here, and down here we're going to add those two values and put that addition into this variable called result. Now, here's an important thing that is easily missed. This value is actually a text value because this is a text field up here. This is a text field. So we need to convert it to a number. And the way we do that in JavaScript, we use something called parse float. And then we need to do that for both of the values. Now that's parse floating point number. We can also use parse int if we're only concerned about using integers, but we don't know if our user is going to input a decimal point number or not, so we need to use parse float. And what do we do with that result? Well, we're going to put it into our output. And I don't think we grabbed our output yet. Not really. So let's grab our output. We could grab it in here, actually. So let's say something like let output equal document. I always spell document wrong. I almost always spell document wrong. Get element by ID. Whoops, element by ID output. Okay, so now we have a variable called output, which is where we're going to put our result. So now we grabbed this P element here, and we created a JavaScript variable called output, and we're going to say output inner text equals result. And I am hoping that's going to work. Let's see what happens. So save that, and we're going to call this new file here. And as you can see, it is exactly like our old file up here, exactly. Okay, see if it works. Let's put 4 in there, and let's put 7 in there. Add 11. Very cool. So that's not a very robust calculator, but here's the cool thing. Check this out. We've got, go back to here. We've got an add button. This is a button. Well, we could as easily put a subtract button. So see where we have button here? Create a subtract button and do exactly the same thing. So you write a whole new function here called subtract function. Okay, so it's exactly the same thing. By the way, I wouldn't call this button because that's going to get confusing. If you have a whole bunch of buttons, that gets confusing. I would just call this add button. And copy that and put that there. That way, make sure this works. 2 and 6 is 8. Okay. And so on your subtract button, you would call it sub button, and then maybe do a multiply button, and then do a divide button, etc., etc. Okay. So you'd have, for each button, you'd have a function. Okay. So you may end up with something like this. I created a little more complex calculator right here. I've got, let's put some numbers in, 23 and 2. I can add them. Here's the result down here. Result is down here. I can subtract them, multiply them, divide them. This is power, exponent. So that's 23 to the second power. That's what that is. And down here, I can put in an array. 23, 3, 5, 6, 7. So that is a series of numbers separated by commas. Sum them. That's the sum. And that's the average. So there's a fun calculator I created. Looks a little bit better than our simple calculator. Anyway, the whole point is take this calculator and make it look really cool. Give it some cool colors and cool fonts, and add a whole bunch of buttons, and make it do whatever you want to do as far as calculation goes. And save that and use it as your own calculator right on your desktop. Thank you for joining me in this lesson 17. I hope to see you in lesson 18. Don't know what it's going to be yet, but it'll probably be fun. See ya.